about it. They want to be all weird about it. So no. It's just all of these coincidences and all the same people involved and all the same issues. Right. Multiple countries. This just happens.
It just happens.
Things just happen.
Yeah.
So this is let me put my banner. I'll put my banner back up maybe I won't because it's going to cover part of the screen. This is 2010. This is a young Hyder Garcia who is testifying before a committee in the Philippines. Again, it's 2010. Hyder Garcia, he just left Tarrant County elections, joined the EAC as a senior subject matter expert, and now has joined Dallas County elections. He's about to become their EA. All right. And before that, he worked in Placer County, California. Before that, he did a few other things, but his main thing is administering computerized elections. And he worked for Smartmatic in Venezuela for like 12 years. And he designed the Smartmatic computerized voting system. He's a computer engineer. So that's his system. And he knows it intimately. And he has a fundamental understanding of computerized voting systems because he's built them. And yes, this was the Smartmatic system that was used in Venezuela. And I don't think we need to go into detail about the state of Venezuela right now. But he already sold it to other countries. The Philippines is one of the countries that purchased Smartmatic. And Hyder did not only design it, but he did help sell it. He's a very charismatic guy. He's very likable. If any of you ever meet him, you're going to love him. He's a charmer. He's very charismatic. And he's very intelligent too. So people believe what he says. He comes across as very credible. And arguably he is. But in his machines, in the Smartmatic machines, there was a feature that we found in all of these other voting machine systems, HART, ES&S, Dominion. Now I haven't examined a Dominion machine, so I'm assuming that it's also part of their user interface, just like it is part of HART and ES&S voting machines user interface. And that component is being called into question here, and it's the clock. Why is there a clock on the machines, and we're relying on that clock, but that clock's not tied to anything, and that clock can be changed at any point in time. The time and the date can be changed. It's not tied to anything. And Hyder will explain his point that it's not tied to anything because it's not connected to the internet. And that sounds like something we want to hear, right? But the issue is that the time feature on these machines being so susceptible and not tied to anything, we can't figure out why it's even on there. It seems to only obfuscate when records are being scanned in. So what it seems like. That's my conspiracy theory. I'm going to ask Wendi about her opinion because she has another view of the same issue. But so for right now, I'm going to play this video again. So for everybody that's watching now, you can understand what we're talking about. Again, this is Hyder Garcia testifying in the Philippines in 2010. Okay, so I'm going to play the video and try to see if you guys can hear.
But I understand, Mr. Chairman, that, for example, in the case of some travel agencies where machines need to communicate with each other, a machine that does not have the same time, using, for example, a reservation system named Esquiva, if the time and date would not coincide, then that message would be rejected as a precaution. So we're just wondering why, in the case of Smartmatic, you did not have this kind of a precaution to make sure that the times are synchronized with each other. Because it would be anomalous, very obvious, Mr. Chairman, that when there are two entities communicating, whether these are human beings or machines, they should be communicating at the same time and date.
Sir, if I may, the reason why doesn't happen is because for the Picos, remember, it operates standalone. From the moment it leaves the warehouse in Cabuyao, it never joins any network or talks to any other computer until the election is completed and the results are transmitted. So you can look at it as the Picos being blind and actually believing in the one only clock it has which is its internal clock. Other than that, it has no other reference to compare to. In the example you've just given us, the computer of the tribal agency is actually synchronizing with time servers over the internet. And even if you switch the time, if you have the proper settings, it will go back to the right time once it sees the reference of the time server. But the Picos is standalone, so it has no one to compare to. It basically has no one to tell them your time is wrong.
Okay, so what I want to explain and what he's explaining right now, he keeps referring to something called the Picos. And from what I've gathered, the Picos is the Smartmatic version of the scanner tabulator from the Hart InterCivic or the DS200, the scanner from the ES&S. So it's what's scanning in the marked ballots. That's what I've gathered. The Picos. That's just the term. That's just what they call that piece of equipment for the Smartmatic system. They have different terms for basically the same things. These voting systems are very, very similar to one another. I don't know why that is. I have my guesses, but that's when he's saying the Picos is standalone. It's the equivalent of him saying the scanner's not connected to the internet. There's no way for it to know what time it is. You have to tell it what time it is. So that's what Hyder's explaining right now. I'm not saying I accept it or that is an acceptable explanation. But that's his point. And because Hyder might be watching and he might be real sensitive, I want to just make sure to explain his position. I understand his position. It's totally unacceptable, but I understand it. So I'm going to play the video again. Just want to make sure y'all understand the Picos is like the scanner tabulator for Smartmatic. That's what I believe. If I'm wrong, Hyder, you can feel free to text me.
So what you're saying, what you're telling us is that the server is the one that dictates whether it will accept the message or not, irrespective of the time being used by the sender.
The server is not looking at the time, but rather the digital signatures and the contents of the package being generated by the Pico. So if the
But if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, what's the use of having a time as far as the Pico sender is concerned? What's the purpose of the time if that is immaterial?
This is a really important question that he just asked. He says, what's the point of the time being there? What's the point of the time that function being on the machine? It's not tied to anything. But right, Wendi, it's not tied to anything, right? But we're only relying on it to prove that the records were produced in a timely fashion. That's all.
That's all. Yes, it's a very important question, and it is something that recently came to my mind as well. What on earth if these machines are keeping records, they're keeping records in real time. What time something happened is very important. The sequence of events of an election is very important. So it is important that the machine's clock is accurate, 100% accurate. Now, here in Oklahoma, we use Hart InterCivic machines, just like you do in Texas. It's my understanding from people who've worked in the elections and worked with these machines at the county level that the clocks have to be set manually. So for our Hart InterCivic machines in Oklahoma, those clocks must be set manually. And so they're set by election workers. They're not even set by, say, the county election secretary. They are set by the workers. And, so.
Not administrative level people like I'll show you all the footage from Tarrant County that I have showing how simple it is to change and who's responsible for doing it. Cause it's election workers, but it's not like necessarily like with you guys. It's probably a little bit different because of the structure of your elections in Texas and Tarrant County. Yeah, it's like just the IT team in the elections department. We don't know who they are really, but they're not super high level people. Like I can access them. They're there all the time. They know me. They know my name. And they're like, oh, they literally showed me how to do it. It was very simple.
Well, In Oklahoma, in the county that I'm speaking of, the person that I know that works there, he's a retired firefighter. So these are the people in Oklahoma that volunteer in the elections, and they are trusted to, actually insert the mobile ballot boxes into the precinct machines too, which come to the county already specified by number. I still do not understand why that is the case. I'm waiting for an answer for that. When you call up the state election board these days and you ask about the process of elections and the machines, they want to know your name. They want to, they want to know things, and then they have a tendency to perhaps not answer some questions. But in the
You're
process,
saying that the people that handle the records are volunteers, not paid staff?
the people that handle the mobile ballot boxes that help get the machines ready for the election in the county are volunteers. Yes, they do not get paid, but they are people like retired firefighters, so they're trusted in the community. Otherwise, they are not allowed to do so, is my understanding in this county, and it is probably also the same, I would say, around the state. So it's not just anyone walking in with access to these machines; they are supervised. But the question is, what are they using to set the machines? Does this happen in every precinct in every county? That I am not positive of. This particular county, the person that I know that works there,
Well,
that did work.
It's I don't know that it's necessary for every county to have the issue. It's just the fact. I mean, we don't. I don't think it's in every county, even in Texas. But I'm gonna play the rest of this and see, if the people understand this. I want to make sure everybody on over on Rumble, over on Pilled and Foxhole, if you'll like and share this out, and feel free to check in the chat, y'all. I got a lot of y'all lurking and watching, but y'all, come on, speak up, say what's up. Say hello to Wendi. She is she's again, I want to make sure to get your titles right. Okay. Cause you do a lot. So I'm trying to make sure to get your titles right. All right. Give me 1 second. So yes, Wendi is the co-founder of Oklahoma Liberty and Integrity Group. And she is the state director for Oklahoma Restore Liberty. All right. So y'all like and share this out. So because her and I have the same issue. So she's going to back me up that this is an issue. All right. So I feel like I've just been screaming into the wind, right? But this is a real issue. And so finally I've got somebody, and we got connected a couple days ago. Someone was like, y'all have to talk about this because there's not very many people talking about it. So now we're going to cover this. Again, this is still Hyder testifying in 2010 in the Philippines about this very issue that I'm about to show you footage of that's happening in Tarrant County. I have footage of it. So Wendi, you don't need to rely on anyone's word about it anymore. I'll show you. I'll show all of you exactly how easy it is to change the time and date. And then after that, Wendi and I will discuss the issues inherent in this concern. I mean, it seems like not a big deal, but it's a very, very, very big deal. So I'm going to keep playing this. Y'all, please comment in the chat if you are following, if you understand what we're talking about, the time and date on the scanner tabulators that accept the ballots. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can't cast ballots after that unless there's like a line, but you have to close the doors. If there's still people in the line, they can cast their ballots. But after the polls close and after that, it matters what time the records are scanned in. Like Wendi said, the sequence of events and the time does matter. But it's a really good way to make sure that records are produced on time, to produce them on time, to just do it. Don't build in a feature that will allow you to make it look like you produce them on time, that will facilitate the fabrication of election records. Don't put in a feature in your voting systems that will facilitate the fabrication of election records. That's what this clock seems to do. But let's just see if you guys are following us and you understand. Let us know, because we need you guys to help open records request these early vote result tapes. We need to put pressure. We have specific records that need to be produced from these machines to try to counteract this very security issue right here. And we're going to cover that in a minute. Let us know.
The time gives you the sequence of the actions, and when you actually
but this, if I may interrupt, as Congressman Gomez says, if this sequence can be delayed to 10 in the evening, what the heck? My God!
Sir, if I may-
Your assurance was that anything that happens between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. would be reflected as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I didn't know that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. could be moved to 10 in the evening. You realize what a fool you have made
sir,
of the legislators who passed this law?
I understand, sir. With all due respect, it's it's an unforeseen situation. It's one.
Unforeseen?
Yes, sir.
That was the principal guarantee that this would be an honest election. That we would know digitally what would happen during election day and during the election hours.
And you do, sir, if I may.
No, I'll forget that. The sons of bitches. You had us standing here guaranteeing to the public and the world that even if fraud is committed, we would be able to trace it. We never said that fraud could not be committed, but you said we could trace it. And now you tell me that at 10 in the evening you could do it and we would never know.
No, sir. I stand by our product, and we can everything that we do.
That's kind of the point right there. Why would you put in the clock into these voting machines so that you could delay a process, and we'd literally never know. We would have no way of knowing, because you can reproduce records, you can fabricate election records. When you, and I suppose we might as well go ahead and show the footage of what we're talking about. So this is footage from Tarrant County elections in 2021. This is in fall. No. Let's see. This is either in fall of 2021 or the spring of 2022. It was right around there. I believe it actually might have been the spring of 2022 that this particular. I've been to several public machine testings, but I think this footage that I'm about to share with you right now I think it's from early in 2022. Very early, because it would have been before the spring elections, and they're doing the public machine testing before that. They do that a certain amount of time before the elections start. Okay, Wendi, this is what's happening. So now, Wendi, you brought up a point that hit exactly on this topic. The only reason I know about this issue is because I got a call from a judge who had taken my poll watchers training, and she went and worked the elections, and she called and said, "Hey, I can't get my controller to shut down, and the elections department doesn't really know what to tell me, and my time is off." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "I don't know. The elections department said the machine must be on the wrong time zone." And I was like, "What the hell?" I was like, "What does that even mean?" I'm so confused. And she was like, "Me too." She's like, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, how is the time off?" She says, "It's an hour behind. It thinks it's 6. It's 7. We're trying to close because we don't have any voters. But the controller thinks it's 6 p.m. and it won't let me close the polls." I was like, "That's weird." And she goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, well, let me know." And I thought about it for a while, and I had seen this footage. I had watched this footage a lot, but I wasn't following. I didn't know really what that footage from the Philippines was about. But when she told me that, I was like, the time on the machines, that's weird. I was like, so, and then I rewatched that footage, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to ask Hyder about this. Because at this point, Hyder and I were already like frenemies. We were already sort of getting along. So I was like, well, I'm going to go. And this is, you say in Oklahoma, you're not even allowed to go into your public machine, your machine testing, because it's not public. Sorry.
Right. That is
Well,
true. That is
I go in, I filmed. Yeah, it's a problem. Y'all gotta change that. Y'all gotta do something about that. But yeah, this is what this is what we filmed, what I filmed. Okay. There was a question about the one of the judges said that she was having an issue with one of the machines, the controller, I think, maybe, and it's something about it being on an Alaska time zone. Do you know anything about that?
I can pull and see, but
That's like the only thing that I've ever heard about that, but she was pretty concerned about it. She said actually someone in Tarrant County elections, when she called to ask, said, well, she said, "Oh, here's an issue." And they said, "Well, that's because it's on the wrong time zone. It's on Alaska time zone." Do you know anything about that?
like, if there was something with a time zone, the tech would have come out and fixed it.
It was at the end of the night. So it was,
I mean, if they had reported to the end of the night, then it would have come back out.
well, it was because the controller she couldn't get it to shut down properly. She couldn't get the controller to shut down.
Taped before closing time, so if it
And just so y'all know, that's Hyder and I talking. That's the same guy that was just testifying in that footage from 2010 in the Philippines. He was administering our election since 2018 until just a couple months ago. And so that's Hyder and I talking. We're already like frenemies. So it's mostly Hyder and I that you're hearing in this footage.
Yeah, like, makes sense. I guess.
So that's what she was asking. She said a tech in Tarrant County Elections told her that when she called in, but she didn't have their name, so I don't know how to even ask. Like, is all of this real?
If you send me the precinct number, we'll see if we have any.
It was at the Southwest Green Oaks.
Okay, cool.
That one. I didn't have this, but that was on election night. I didn't have a poll watcher there on election day. I only had them there for early voting, and they didn't have any issues like that during early voting. So of course, like everything goes wrong on election night when it matters and when I don't have as many poll watchers there. So is there any way to find that out if any of these are on the proper time zone? How do you when I only have them there for Green Oaks? So I don't know how to even ask, like, is all of this real?
If you send
Anything about that?
Wait, if there was something with the time zone, the tech would have gone out and fixed it.
It was at the end of the night. So it was,
I mean, if you
you know,
at the end of the night, then it would have come back out.
well, it was because the controller she couldn't get it to shut down properly. She couldn't get the controller to shut down.
Tapes before closing time, so if it's, yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
So that's what she was asking. She said a tech in Tarrant County Elections told her that when she called in, but she didn't have their name, so I don't know how to even ask, like, is all of this real?
If you send me the precinct number, we'll see if we have any.
It was at the Southwest Green Oaks.
Okay, cool.
That one. I didn't have this, but that was on election night. I didn't have a poll watcher there on election day. I only had them there for early voting, and they didn't have any issues like that during early voting. So of course, like everything goes wrong on election night when it matters and when I don't have as many poll watchers there. So is there any way to find that out if any of these are on the proper time zone? How do you? Is that anything y'all do?
Looking at the time as they're setting them up and the whole thing.
So the only way for us to verify that is for me to be here at 2:00 and make sure that says that it's 2:00.
I mean, it's right there on the screen.
Yeah, it's 3:15 at this point in time.
Yeah, so this needs to be changed. These, remember, we change these twice a year because of the time zone thing. So when we go through public tests, that's part of one of the things that we do.
Okay.
Here is you're going to see that happen. So,
Okay.
you know, we'll change it. We'll change it here. So, we can change that later, Thomas.
Yeah, let them know they know.
Yeah. Okay.
The checklist is going through.
So that's always their excuse, as oh, it's the time that every time I've discussed it with Hyder, first you heard just in that exchange, he said he doesn't know anything about that. He said, well, if there's an issue, someone would have fixed it. And he's kind of acting like he doesn't really know anything about that. Then when we confirm it and I show on footage, he knows I'm filming. Like, he gave me permission to film. I asked him, he said, yeah. So he knows I'm filming. And when I catch it on film that the time is off, all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, the explanation for that is daylight savings. And I was like, you didn't have that explanation when I first mentioned it to you. You didn't say, well, it's possible that the times were not manually reset after the last, daylight savings switch. He was just like, no, don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, and then once I caught it on film, he's like, oh, that's the time zone. That I know, I have an explanation for that. I'm like, okay. All right. So after just for just a moment before they show us how they're going to change the time and dates on these machines, Wendi, I have an opportunity here to show something because I argue with Hyder about the production of these early vote result tapes. And this is the same issue with the time and date. This is the reason why Hyder and I argue about the production of the early vote result tapes is because I want them produced on time before the totals are officially reported. Imagine having all of your records produced before you do a report on all of the records. How are you going to do a report and report the official totals when you don't have the official records you're going to report the official totals from all of these locations and for early voting, but you've never produced the official records to confirm this electronic total that you're reporting. That's crazy. I was like, no, you need to print those before. Yeah. Well, you need to print those before. All of that should have been produced before you report the official totals because all of it should line up. how are you going to do canvassing and have all of these totals certified if you don't even have the fucking records to canvass and to make sure everything matches? Absolute madness. So I see an opportunity here because I've got the tapes on film. Because Hyder says, well, we can't produce those tapes when you want them produced, because if we produce them before we've reported the totals, people might release the totals before we've reported the totals. And I was like, well, first of all, it's already a crime to release the totals prematurely. It's already a crime. It's already a crime. So like, you could charge me for doing that now, if, you know, or what, you could charge any election judge for doing that if she prints them and looks at them. But if we mandate that they be printed, and you'll see why, it's not really likely that somebody would happen to see the totals. You really can easily make sure that people don't see the totals, but we need those tapes printed regardless, on time, and signed by witnesses there. So that's a really good way to make sure that paper records are produced on time, is actually producing the paper records on time and having people sign them. If there's sensitive information, we can make sure that it's not seen, and I'll show you why. Because that tape, the way that they print out, they're long receipts and they roll up like this. You can't tell we're going through it. It's small print too. So you could print the tapes with, yeah, it's a scroll. It's a long scroll.
Right.
So you could print it with nobody, and it rolls up with nobody seeing the totals per candidate every day through early voting, which is what I'm trying to get done legislatively.
Right.
In Texas, they're required to print them at central count. The Secretary of State told them to do that. Don't print them at the polling location. Because we don't want anybody seeing them. Print them at central count. They're not even doing that. They're not even printing them at central count. So Hyder and I argued for like 2 years almost on this. Then he's agreed to start producing them. And then he left like a couple months after he agreed to start producing them. I go up there and they're still not producing them. They're still relying on this whole thing. But we'll see. I'll show you why. Even Hyder should agree that it's totally feasible to produce these tapes, and it would make more sense to do it on time, because then you don't have to pull all the machines back out and try to reprint them. You do it on time, it saves time, and it produces the auditable paper trail as required. The only good thing that was in HAVA requiring an auditable paper trail. And so it's like, come on, guys. So I'm going to play this, and you'll see first, before they show how to change the time and date, you're going to see a little exchange between Hyder and I about those tapes. Those are the tapes that I want to be produced on time, because those are the tapes that can be reproduced and fabricated using the feature to change the time and date. You can literally just make it look like you did print these on time. And look, they match up with the electronic totals that we already told you about. You can just reproduce them. And it's really bad for election security. Super bad. Anyways, here we go.
Right.
And this is is this a result tape that y'all printed?
Yeah, it's basic for the ballot board. You know, we're going across the region.
Yeah, is this a result tape or is this like a zero tape?
No, that's.
Yeah, it looks like a. Well, yeah, I guess it's a zero because it's all showing up.
Before the break, they're gonna run the ballots and then they'll print the results.
Okay, so I want to point out right there, just real quick. He didn't know for sure. He had to pick it up and open it and look at it. He says this must be a zero tape. They look just like the result tapes. You print the zero tape at the beginning of the polls. At the end of the polls, you print the result tape, and it has the results per candidate from that scanner, from that location. So you have the multiple scanners. You'll print the result tapes from multiple scanners. You need to print them on time so that we can make sure that those totals aren't changing from day to day to day through early voting. That some candidates not somehow losing numbers from day to day to day. Okay. For example, just one wild example, you know, that's what we should be able to audit and check those things. Without them producing these tapes at all, we have no verification and no official paper record of what happened at those locations during early voting, where we have a minimum of 60% of our votes coming through. They're required to print them on election day. They do. Chapter 81 of the Texas Election Code says all election day laws apply to early voting where feasible. But they're just not printing these, and they keep gaslighting all of us, asking, you know, when we figured out, Dr. Presley figured out that we needed these. She called me. She said, you better get those tapes, see if he's printing them. And I was like, okay, I'll go. She's like, go and see if Hyder has them. She said, I don't think he's printing them. I said, okay, she was right. She was right. He's not. Very, very weird. But so I just totally debunked their claim that people could see the results and then leak them. You know, it's already a crime to leak them. It's not like we have to get that passed. It's already a crime. And he didn't know. That's why I asked him. I was like, hey, look at that. Is that a zero tape or a results tape? And I show you on film that he had to pick it up and unroll it to determine whether what data was on it at all, because you can't see it from when it's printing up. So the point is, you can print those tapes. I can sign it as a witness that it was produced on time. Anyone present can sign it as a witness, initial it at the bottom. They're very long, and prove that that's the one. So that when we open records request it later, we do a full audit, we can say, yep, that's the record. That's the record that was produced on time. I was there. I saw it being printed and I signed it, right? As opposed to just not having any paper record at all. Anyways, I proved that he had to look at it in detail to even tell if it was a zero or results tape. All right, Hyder, you'll never be able to argue again that when that tape prints out, people can see it and then everyone's going to go and leak it. Okay, alrighty. About the